Welcome to MindShifters Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce, the Forgiveness Doctor. My name is David Hayes, and I'll be sitting in for Dr. Ryce today. He is away doing some workshops, and there's a few things that are going to be done a little differently today. We had scheduled Ari Butnik, the chef for Heartland, to be on today, and we are experiencing once again some challenges with the technical aspects of it. Normally, the number to call in is 646-200-4169, or you could go to the chat room and ask some questions. What we're going to ask you to do today, that if you would be so kind, if you have any questions or would like to call in, we have another number for you to call. We're unable to do this through the computer, so the chat room, if you'd like to text a number or question to number 801-971-3413. That's 801-971-3414. I beg your pardon, I said 3 in that. So it's 801-971-3414 for any texts or any questions, and we'll take them. We have Ken that is here with me at Heartland, which is where we're broadcasting from today, and so the show is going to be a little bit different. We apologize for any inconvenience that it may have created for you, and know that whatever needs to happen and go on today with him, we will handle it. We'll do it the best that we can, and we'll have some fun in doing it. We started this MindShifters program back in January, and thank you very much, Carol Guy, who has made it possible for us to do this. Carol hosts the Fifth Dimensional Living on Monday from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and it's at www.earthangels.com. So if anyone has any questions that they would like to text and or to give a call, Ken is sitting here with me, and he'll be monitoring that phone. So what are we all about here? The MindShifters group, part of what we've been talking about all week is about commitments, and I know that some people have made an agreement on Monday that they would do a minimum of one Reality Management Worksheet. That's the Forgiveness Worksheet. And if you're listening in for the first time, I'm going to talk about what forgiveness is, coming from the Aramaic language, which was the language that this man named Yeshua used over 2,000 years ago, and it is the language that 5 of the major religions spoke. So this language about forgiveness, the definition of forgiveness is to cancel, to let go, to untie. And we're talking about tools that have been developed by Dr. Ryce in order to go in and remove realities that are being held in your mind in order to let go of them and the energies that surround them that may be creating something other than love with you. And the premise that we come from is that we're all created in the likeness and the image of love. That's our true essence. In the workshops, Michael asked people, have you ever held the newborn baby within 24 hours or 48 hours of its birth, and then to put a word with what would describe that child? And a lot of the words are innocence, miracle, extraordinary, awesome, beautiful. And we contend that everyone comes into the world like that. And then what has to happen, though, for us to go from that to another side of the board, which we ask people, have you ever done anything that you now regret, and how were you feeling at the time that you did that? And often people will put words up there: angry, justified, hostile, disappointed, mad, sad. And so we ask for the comparison. What had to happen for you to be coming in as your true essence of love and go to this, what we refer to as the non-being of hostility and fear, to behave that way? when we do that, and we talk about this as an energy system, that this is an energy of love, and when we put an energy, something other than love, into that system, then that was called, in the Aramaic language, that was called sin, that you were off target. You were putting an energy into your system that didn't belong. So our purpose here is to support people in taking responsibility for their life and the realities that they hold in their mind. And in order to do that, well, then we have to take a look and question and change a lot of things. One of the biggest challenges is that I found with most people is this definition of what is reality and what is actuality. So reality is what it is that I'm holding and projecting in my mind, and actuality is what is going on outside of me. And when we can define those definitions, and the way that we define it is my reality is a perceptual output of my mind. And forgiveness is a tool for changing one of those realities, for letting go of one of those realities versus what's going on out in the world. Because what's going out in the world and what's going on in my mind is totally different. The way that it shows up, the way that I perceive it. So today we're going to be talking about holding different realities of love, of what does that mean? And there's a poem that's out that Michael has, and that you can get on the website. That if you like, at each moment that you're holding in the space and the reality of your true essence, then this is what you can expect from it. Each moment, it's titled, in each moment of love, each moment of giving, each moment of joy is a moment of living. Each moment of anger, each moment of lying, each moment of vengeance is a moment of dying. All our moments add together like the digits in a sum. The answer tells us plainly whether life or death shall come. And it's by Sir Cecil Martin. And it's so true. It's that whatever realities that we're living in our mind is what determines whether there's going to be life or whether there's going to be death. The phone isn't ringing and the texts aren't coming through, so I take it for granted that there isn't anything that's come through. And so Ken asked me today if we would talk. And you want to say hello, Ken?
Hey, y'all.
Ken is here at Heartland, and we're located in the Ozarks in Missouri, in Theodosia, Missouri. And Ken he was one of the people that located this property with Michael over 20 years ago. And he's here at Heartland assisting with us getting ready for the intensives this summer. And the intensives, we'll be doing a 65-day intensive, and those are broken down into 9 different modules. We're going to be doing the codependence, the interdependence, the Why Again intensive, teachers training, laws of living, intuitive development, and Course in Miracles. So if you're interested in participating in any or all of those intensives this summer, well, then you can go to our website, which is www.whyagain.com. It's WHYAGAIN.com, and check out the schedule. Ken is here helping us get ready for this and improving the property and fixing things and getting it ready for your all's welcome. And Ken had asked me today if we could talk about the MindShifters. Michael has developed a tool for each one of the seminars that he does. The Why Again, there's a forgiveness tool, there's a tool for healing through relationships, and there's a tool for MindShifters. How do we use this tool for shifting realities and letting go of realities in the mind? So since this is a MindShifters talk program, then we'll talk about just how does a mind shifter work? What is it that's going on? We have mind shifters groups throughout the country, And if you go to the website and click on support groups, you will see who it is that you can contact in your area, or if you're interested in getting a MindShifters support group going. Our purpose in having this is so that every day, at least Monday through Friday, you have the support in using the tools and applying them in your life. So, it looks like there might be a text or a question or something there. Okay, do you want to take that? Ken's taking a call now, so it may be someone with a question on doing the show. Yeah. Hello. We can't. If you're listening. Yeah, this is Tim. So if Tim is listening, I can't. I'm not listening to Tim. I'm listening to Ken talk to Tim. So anyway, does he have a question?
Yeah, but I can relay your question too.
Okay. So while Ken is getting that question from Tim, then we just want to talk about how the MindShifters groups works and how a MindShifter itself works. You know, what we've talked about in the workshop is that there's 3 levels of the mind. We talk about the mind, that there's the conscious mind, the unconscious, or the unconscious mind. And the way that we describe it, that we have a conscious mind, and that conscious mind is really only able to see a small minute of the information that's out there. You know, we live in a digital world that there's 20 trillion bits of information out there, and we have an analog mind. We can only see so much of that. And that's in the discoveries that they did at Harvard was that they had over, in a time frame where there's 10,000 brain cells firing, that is energy that's stimulating the brain cells, the mind can only see 9 bits of that information. And it was done and that's a 7 plus or minus 2. So if we're only seeing 9 bits of a 20 trillion bit world, then from our conscious mind, there's things that are going on in the subconscious and the unconscious mind. The subconscious mind is part of what is just right there on the surface. As an example, if I were to ask you what's the color of your car, boom, you would be able to bring that right up. That's in the subconscious. Well, if I was to ask you, though, what's the color of your car that you had back in 1982, then you would have to go a little bit deeper down in there in order to recognize what that is. So there are things that's buried in the unconscious mind, then there's things in the subconscious, and then the conscious. It's just a filtering system. The MindShifter is designed in order for you to delve into the things that are in the unconscious, because the unconscious mind is really what drives our behavior. Though we like to say that we're doing it on a conscious level, we're really doing it on an unconscious level. What was said in the Aramaic language was to take care of the heart, and that word heart translated is the unconscious. So when we were told to take care of the heart, that is what it is that drives us. Another way that you might look at that is when, if you've ever been out on a fishing trip and you're like in the ocean, you're going on a charter, then what they usually do is that they'll go up and they have an automatic pilot that they program in the direction that they want this to go. And then they go out and then they just literally let the boat steer itself. It's just, and the person goes back to the back of the boat. They throw the lines out. They're attempting to catch fish. So now all of a sudden, if they don't catch any fish, well then they go up there and let's say the person just grabs the steering wheel, they turn in another direction, they start going in a totally different direction. Then they go back into the back of the boat and start fishing again. Well, what happens, the automatic pilot then gradually goes and gets right back on course to what it was that was set. Unless that automatic pilot is reset, then it will always go back and do that. So that's how our unconscious works as well, too. And unless we go in and remove the things that are guiding our behavior and program in something new, then it will always go back, and that's why we'll always do. Why is this happening to me again? It's happening to us again because of the fact that that's what we've programmed into. Now, we've been programmed into lots of different ways and so forth. The truth is, though, is that we are the ones that's in charge of that, and we can go in and remove anything that's in that unconscious. And so Ken is sitting here, and you had Dr. Tim on there. What did Dr. Tim have to say? Tim Hayes, yep.
And he just wanted to offer his support and say he was listening.
Great. So we got that much of it going anyway. At least we know someone that's listening out there.
Yeah. I have a question for you about MindShifters.
Thank you, Tim. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the difference between mind and brain? How do you distinguish between the two, or are they the same?
That's a good question. I knew Ken was going to challenge me with some things today. He loves putting me on the spot with it. You know, Ken, one of the things, and this is a challenge to grasp. It was for me, and most people with it. It is. And so it's like I said, well, what do you mean, my mind? Well, you know, someone ever referred to your digestive system?
Yeah.
Yeah. So where's your digestive system?
In my stomach.
In your stomach. Where is it? Really?
My abdomen.
It's in your abdomen. So if we were to open your abdomen, would we see your digestive system?
Yeah.
We would?
Yeah.
We would be able to take the digestive system out, or would we be able to take the stomach out?
The stomach and the intestines.
So now it's in the intestines as well.
Yeah.
So your digestive system is in your intestines and it's in your stomach. What about your bowels?
And the spleen and liver.
And the spleen and liver, so your digestive system.
And the gallbladder.
And the gallbladder, okay. And so you have a respiratory system too, right?
Yeah.
And so where's your respiratory system?
Chest.
It's in your chest. Okay. So are you getting my drift?
Throat.
And it's in your throat. So if I were to go into your throat, well, then I could discover the respiratory system.
Part of it.
Part of it. Oh, okay. So such is what it is with the mind and the brain. It's not like that there is a separateness of that. It's the operation of it. It's like there's a digestive system that operates all of those things. So it's like there's the brain and the mind and the way that the mind is set up. Yet there isn't a mind. It's not like that we could, someone makes a transition and we go in and say, okay, well, here's their brain. Well, where's their mind at? You can't locate it. It's not like that there's a location of that. It's just what we have categorized is so that we can communicate, it's in my mind. We do have it stored there, and it's stored in different capacities, as I was talking about earlier. There's an unconscious, there's a conscious, and a subconscious. Now, because some people say, well, there's no subconscious mind, it's all unconscious, or that is. Well, for the way that we're doing this is looking at it, and it makes sense to me because it's like a filtering system. 20 trillion bits of information out there. I can only consciously, through my senses, can only consciously hold 9 bits of all of that information that's out there. I can only see that. So what does it do? It channels through, like a channeling through to an analog mind. What we're referring to now is an analog mind where there's 20 trillion bits of information. It's just like a funnel. It's like, here's the ocean, and it starts to funnel down, and it goes into pipes, and then it comes out, or a river, and it comes out through the faucet. Well, is that the river, or is that the water there, or is this that function? It's just the function of how the mind operates, and that's what we want to talk about, is how it operates, not so much as where it's located. And in the brain, well, then there's different areas of the brain. What they've discovered is it's like the funnel of the brain. Well, then they know that in there, that's where decisions get made. That's where there's certain connections that are there that when people make choices about where they can make a choice and where some people can't make the choice. There was some research that was done with people that had head injuries to the front of this, they were asked to make a decision, and the decision was that there's no right or wrong answer. And out of this survey, out of this research that they did with it, people that had injuries to the frontal lobe, they could not make a decision on making that. When they were told that there was a right or wrong answer, then they were able to choose. But they're not able to. It's because there was some damage that was done to the frontal lobe. And in the frontal lobe is where that we have our intentions. In the back of the brain, what they call, in the back of it where there's receptors that are there, that's where our goals are set and our perceptions of everything, of what it is. And they get filtered in through, filter also about what kind of behavior that we're going to have. That goes into our getting the stress that you need. If anyone is interested in doing it, Michael does a diagram of the brain of how it is that how the information is filtered through and so forth. So does that answer your question about the brain or the mind? What's the difference? Not so much how you can locate it?
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is the brain is like the physical part maybe, and the mind is the way it operates.
Yeah. We're just calling it the mind. And we often say we need to be out of our mind because now they've also discovered that, and I don't have it in front of me, that they discovered, and you might want to review the HeartMath solution, where that there is another heart that's outside of the body. It's like, well, how is that possible? It's kind of like if we ask you, where are you? Who are you? Where are you? Well, who are you? That's a question, Ken. Who are you?
Yeah,
I've asked Ken this question a couple of times over the last week or so. So who are you? And and sometimes people say, well, I'm an engineer. I'll say, well, okay, so you're an engineer. Who is the you that's an engineer? Who am I? Well, I am a light being. So who is the I that is a light being? So there's a separateness there, and that's the way that we see things through our brain, through our mind, with that we can't really even identify. So when we have things that are put into the mind that's stored in there, that we start behaving from our mind, from our past, rather than behave in the present moment, that we're always living from what it is that we've experienced before because it's filtered through our mind, that we actually say this is the actuality of what's going on. And it's not what's going on out there, it's just what's going on in our brain. Michael talks about that if someone sees an accident, which is a pretty common way. Well, yeah, not everybody saw it the same way. Why not? It was the actuality. How did that person see it differently? The only reason that person saw it differently is because of the fact of the information that they have stored in their brain cells and what it was required and their perception of it based on their experience is what it is that they saw. And they didn't really see out there. They only saw it. That's what's up in its mind. And that's a really tough one to get, especially when we've been so taught that, this is the way that it is. Don't even ask any questions. Remember growing up as a child, Ken, then what do children do? Why? Why, Mommy? Why, Daddy? Why, Mommy? Why, Daddy? It's often a lot of people like to believe that the first words out of a child's mouth is Mom or Daddy. Mama or Dada, right? Most of the time, the word is no. It's the first word. Because what they taught, they don't start speaking until they're 2 and 3 years old. Some, on the average with that. And what they've been taught after a while is no, 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 no. And first words out of the mouth is no. They've made that connection. Now, they haven't developed it. They haven't been able to differentiate between, like, don't think of the color of your car. The truth of it is that the mind doesn't think about it at all. It just registers information stored in it. It's a information center, and it just reacts. It just responds to the stimulus response of whatever it is that it's got stored into that. And it's impossible that it's what it does. It's a reflex organ. You cannot not think of the color of your car. When you say, I'm not thinking of the color, I'm like, well, what is it that you're not doing? So the brain just and the mind just gives us information based on it. Now, there's another entity of us of who it is that we are. You know, we have a body and we have feelings and we have thoughts and everything, but that's not really us. That's not our true essence. That's not who it is that we are. You know, people call it the soul, or they call it spirit, or they'll call it some other a name that we've given to it. That doesn't really even tell us who it is that we are. It's like describing the child when the child is born. Well, okay, so there's a whole list of things. It's beautiful, it's kind, it's thoughtful, it's loving, and then we say, so that's everything that is. Well, no, it's even more than that. But we can't describe it. We can only experience it. See, we can only experience who it is that we are. When we do this work that Michael has developed here, we get to let go of all of the things that we've come to believe that we are. And what is it that we've come to believe that we are? Most people have been programmed to believe that we're bad, that we're sinners, that we have sinned, that we're condemned. And if we don't do our forgiveness work, and I love it, and Tim, I wish you were able to interact with me on this. I love this, what you had talked about, that most people look for forgiveness, that they want to either be forgiven or they want someone else to forgive them so they can forego the punishment. There is no punishment. The punishment only comes from the unconscious non-being mind to get even with someone about something. And if we bought into that belief system, there's nothing for us to forgive anyone for. We only have to do that forgiveness work by removing the energies and the beliefs that we have within us that's causing us pain. We're not designed to do that. We're not, everyone has talked about that we were made in the image and the likeness of God. Well, what is God? God is love, has to be love. To create all of this, intelligent, has to be. We are all of those things. We're intelligence. We have a soul. Well, what is that? Well, we can't define that. When we go to define it, we're running it through the filters of the mind, to then to define what it is that we've been told, what's true and what isn't true. It's kind of interesting. I was watching a movie involving the Muslim religion and the culture and what it is that they were taught. And it's like, and the people went along with whatever it is that was said because that's what was passed down to them. And until we challenge, and that's what this whole program is about. We're here to offer people an opportunity to create the space for them to explore and have their own self-discovery of what it is that, what do things mean to them? What are the ideas that they have? What are their views of life? Not based on so much on what it is that they've been taught or even their experience of it. It is about to look at it differently. When we look at it differently, and I don't know, have you ever had that, Ken, to where all of a sudden there's something that happened to you, and now that you've looked at it differently 20 or 30 years later, well, then you can see the value.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And now you're touching on the other question I had. So I had a question about mind, but also what does shifter mean? Okay, what does shifters mean? So now you're talking about what that actually means, which is that we're making, is it that we're making more conscious decisions rather than with how we're operating in our lives, rather than that we're just going on past habits?
Mm-hmm. Okay, right. It's a good question. The first thing that comes to my mind is what Einstein said, that 90% of what he did was inspiration, that it came from his higher guidance. He was the one that said there's no such thing as matter. There's only energy, energies whose vibrations have been so low it is perceptible to the senses. He got it. And as Michael says, he said that his interest was that what his discovery was going to be of more interest to the theologians than it was to the scientists. See, because he got it, said there is only energy. Well, in the Aramaic language and in the original wording is that in the beginning was the mind energy. We've been taught that in the beginning was the word, and it was the mind energy. Einstein had it that it was the energy, whatever energies that we hold. So when you're talking about the shifters, what is it that we want to shift? Then we want to shift from being asleep, living in an unconscious world, and shift to living into the conscious world of our true essence. When if we ever go to solve a problem, or the biggest problem, challenge that people have with solving problems is that they're looking into their carbon-based memory, they're looking into their experience of how to solve a problem. And the mind just keeps showing them over and over and over what it is. I'm thinking of on Apollo 13. Do you know that they spent millions of dollars, and in order to get them back, that was the one that was lost, right? And they were in Houston, and they just could not figure out how to give them some instructions of what they could do in order to change this mechanism. And one guy, and everybody is in this frantic, and there was one person that was there that was really calm with all of it, and through that calmness came the answer to him. He said, tell him to use a pencil. Now, they went through all of this technical stuff, and it was a pencil that, use a pencil. Because when we're coming from fear and we're in hostility, the only thing that we're going to be taking information from is the carbon-based information that we have stored in ourselves. When we're living in fear, then that's all that it can show us. When we're living in our true essence, when we're living in our highest consciousness, as Einstein said, that intuitive imagination. I've done a little bit of research and watched a few things about Einstein, and he gives credit to his friend for the one that helped him to discover MC squared. That they were walking on a beautiful day, and his friend was going on about these troubles and emotional and relationship problems that he was having, and it distracted Einstein long enough that, because he was going through his head about figuring out this problem, that when he tapped in with this guy, then boom, the answer came. Like with Gandhi. When Gandhi, if you watch the movie Gandhi, and that's an incredible story. I mean, how did this small meek of a man change the whole country? And what he says, we're going to stay in the mind of love, of nonviolence. We're going to do this. Well, the only way, what did people want to do? When they uprighted and they were coming after them, they wanted to fight back. Seemed to be, that's a natural, quote, natural thing to do. It isn't natural. It seems that way. And then when people react back to that, that's what it is that they get more of. So what he said,
a difficult one.
That is.
We all have problems with that. I know I do. That if I feel attacked, it doesn't have to be physically.
Mm-hmm.
But if I feel attacked verbally or emotionally, it's like I want to do something to protect myself. And it's difficult not to fight back in some way or run away.
Uh-huh. So notice where your breath is at, just as you were talking about that. Where was your breath? How was your breath? Yeah. So one of the things, this is an energy system. And when those things get triggered, you've heard of the fight, flight, right? Well, there's fight, flight, or freeze. And I've added one, fight, flight, freeze, or breathe. Because when we breathe, we open ourselves up to our true essence. And yes, I agree with you. And my recommendation is that before going out and confronting people and standing in front of people for them to do physical harm to you, then you need to prepare and do work. That's what Yeshua did. He didn't just go out and say, okay, you can't do anything to me. You can't harm my body. You can harm it, but what I can do is rebuild it in 3 days. That's what's his message, is that when you remove everything that's in your system that doesn't belong there, the energy doesn't belong there, you rebuild it. Love is the strongest energy that there is. It's when we put energy into anger and hostility and fear, we strengthen it. It's when we, you may have heard about the story, seen it, where a child is standing in front of a herd of charging elephants, and it just stops. There's a wonderful movie called The Power of One, and that's what the child does. That he has to face his fears. He has to face all of this hostility, all of that, and when he faces that, then it passes through him. See, we believe that that's what is going to happen, and that's what we draw to us in order to give us the opportunity, in order to let go of that, because that's what the world wants us to do. If I can get you to be in hostility or fear, if I can have you to fear something, Ken, then I have control over you, because I can always threaten it with you, and I can predict the behavior that it is that you're going to do. That's when we go, you know what? Do your burst. Do whatever that it is. I hold the space. And then, Michael was Tim was talking about, and it's really great, that story, Tim, and I don't have it down completely, where when they went into the concentration camps, of the one fellow that had gone around and helped everyone, and he looked really healthy, and they figured, well, you just must have just gotten there, and he'd been there for 6 years. He had all those things were going on with him out there as well as with other people, and he had already decided that he was going to choose love. And as I recall the story, the best of it that I can recall of it is that he was a Polish attorney, and he spoke German as well. And they came through, grabbed him and his family, killed his whole family of 5 right in front of him. Do you think that he was enraged? Do you think he felt threatened? Whew, can you imagine? They didn't kill him because he could speak German. And so they got him to use it. And he made a choice then, wow, you know what? I can either be angry and hostile and about this, and he chose that he was going to live in the consciousness of love. It's like that poem that I read, Each Moment. Each moment of love, each moment of giving, each moment of joy is a moment of living. Each moment of anger, each moment of lying, each moment of vengeance is a moment of dying. All our moments add together like the digits of a sum, and the answer tells us plainly whether life or death shall come. So this fellow came, and they looked at him, and it's like he was one of the most healthy. He was healthy looking. He still had the same jobs and things and the poor eating conditions that everyone else did, yet he was healthy. And I believe it's because he chose that. And he had every reason, quote from the hostile mind, from the non-being mind, justified in doing what it is that he wanted to do. Does that help?
Yeah. Thinking about that with the guy, surviving well and healthily in the concentration camp, I'm wondering, since I think that one of our addictions is food and another addiction is breathing, and that if we really connect with love, just total love, that we won't have to breathe or eat, and we'll still have perfect bodies. Well,
that's one of the things that you and I have talked about, and I haven't had that experience. So far, the information that I have in my mind is, that I have in my mind are these certain things. As I start to remove them, the fears and the hostility, I'm finding out that, wow, you know what, I can do more than, I can do this. I'm reminded of when I did my first cleanse, so to speak, and it was called the Master Cleanser, and it was 10 days of lemon juice, cayenne pepper, maple syrup, and water. 10 days, that's it. No food, no nothing. The first time that I did it, my roommate at the time said that he would wake up in the morning and he was afraid to go into my bedroom to look and see because he thought I was going to be dead. Because in his mind, no one can go 10 days like that without having some physical problem. The truth of it is my body healed. It was miraculous. And I know that you've done fasting, so you know what I'm talking about. Well, if I have the brain cells, though, now I'll tell you, on the 9th day, and what he recommended in the book was to tell no one that you're doing this except someone that's really going to support you doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because what they're going to do, so on the 9th day, I decided to test this. So this was my 9th day, and I was at work with several other people, and they asked me if I wanted to have some lunch, and I divulged to them that I was doing this cleanse and I hadn't done it. One woman literally started raging about I was going to die and that I've damaged my body and my brain, and that she knew about this. Now, this was a woman that she was extremely overweight. She weighed about 300 pounds. Not that that's good nor bad. And she was telling me that, you know, don't do this. This is going to kill you. And I said, I feel fabulous. I feel wonderful. Now, since then, I have done that on many occasions. But the brain cells that I had in there and the brain cells that most people have said, you can't do that. You can't do that. Mm-hmm. So this isn't about me going up and standing in front of Hitler and saying, you know, Mr. Hitler, I think you're making a mistake, that you shouldn't be doing this. Oh, that would be the truth. I'd have a challenge then to be able to see, oh, am I this body or am I not this body? Yeshua didn't do that, and we don't recommend, you know, we recommend that people do the work. And what you'll be guided to do is you'll know exactly what you're to say and to do, because you're coming from your intuitive self. You're not coming from fear and hostility. When we come from fear and hostility, we simply strengthen that belief. Yeah. So, you know, I haven't given you a number out. Someone may have a comment. We've talked about a lot of things. The number today is 801-971-3414. That's 801-971-3414. If you'd like to text your comments or questions or thoughts to that number, or if you have a question that you would like to ask, well, then just call, and Ken will go over there and answer that phone, and I'll keep talking on this phone here. Seems to be going well. What do you think, Ken? Yeah.
Fine.
So our whole purpose of this program is, this is a conversation. You know, so often in the world we're being inundated with, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, you need to go do this, you need to go do that. And what we're inviting people to do is to use some tools to explore for yourself. You know, self-exploration is what it's all about. If we want to reinforce what it is that we already have, that's fine too. You know, it's everyone's life, it's everyone's choice. If you're living in hostility or fear, if you're concerned, if you're having anxiety, if you're ill health right now, we're created in the image and the likeness of the Creator. We're created to live in this full life of abundance and joy and happiness. If we're not, as the Each Moment said, then whichever one that we choose, either our life or our death will come. We are designed to live on. Now, for a mind that says, no, we're supposed to die at 60 and 70 years old, and if you're a man, well, then you're going to die earlier, you know, statistically because of that, because that you're a man. Now, what sense does that make whatsoever? Now, they've attributed it to, well, it's because that the man has gone out and he's carrying these stresses and so forth, and that women can have, because they're able to handle themselves emotionally better when they live longer and everything. They're changing that now. I don't know if you know that. They're changing that now. Yeah, they reverse that. So it's about how do we handle the hostilities and fears. It's how do we let go of all of the, quote, worry. You know, 95% of what some scientists and doctors are saying today, anywhere, depending on which survey that you look at, it's from 80 all the way up to 95%. They haven't said 100% of the cause of any disease is stress. And what is stress? Stress is what's created that the mind creates between the way that it is that we want something and the way that it is. And when we want something to be a certain way and it's not, and we start doing behavior, it creates stress. We need stress. And most people, how many people have you ever listened to, Ken, that said we need stress, besides Michael?
Yeah, nobody.
Yeah, nobody said, "Oh, well, I don't want any stress in my life." You have to have stress. Without stress, we wouldn't take any action to do anything. If we didn't have the stress of comfort when we sat on a tack, well, then we would just sit on the tack. You know, that story, remember the story about the boy that lived in a bubble, because he wasn't able to even know when he was injured or anything. We need the pain and we need the stress, so that motivates us. You know, there was and you know, we will do our work. We'll do it now or we'll do it later. You know, a lot of people talk about, so, well, you know what, I'm just fine right now, and you know, my life is going great. Good. If it isn't going the way that is you want, we invite you to go to the website, www.whyagain.com. That's WHYAGAIN. Download the tools, and if this fits for you, if this works for you, well, then we encourage you to use it to shift what it is that's going on in your life. If you've bought into and believe, your belief is that, you know, when you die, well, then you're going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell, and if you've done everything really good, well, then, and that's the way you choose to believe it, that's fine. So then you know how you should be living your life. You know, really that principle is a pretty good principle, except when it draws up to us that we have to die. Why do we have to die? You know, David, that doesn't make sense. Well, as the scriptures are saying, and I'm less educated than most of the scriptures, you know, with man became death. What is it? With death became man, or man became death. Death was only created by man when he disconnected himself from his true source, his true energy with that. So we invite you to do your work, and, you know, it doesn't get any easier later. It only gets later. And the later we wait, the more difficult it becomes. So, you know, go do your work. We invite you to participate and to use the tools and to contact us and, you know, look for a support group. Find a support group if you're interested in this work. If you're interested in coming to Heartland, then we have a schedule there of that's going to be going on this summer. We do it every summer and have for the last 20-some-odd years. And people come in here, and we limit each module to 30 participants, so that so that people can have this one-on-one and this energy of working with each other. And we're taking registration for those now. So if you're interested, you can go to the website and to download that information. And what else, Ken? What else?
I have another question here. On the second heading on the MindShifter sheet, it says, approving of mother's, father's faults heals me. And I imagine what you're referring to there is the forgiveness worksheet. Is that correct? If it's not that, then I'm wondering how their faults can heal me.
Okay. Well, that's a good question. So let me go back and describe to you how to do a mind shifter. How to do a mind shifter. So what you want to do is take a clean sheet of paper, and you draw a line down it diagonally or vertically. Okay? You separate it, left and right side of the page. On the left side, what you want to do is, which one did you say? This one here. So what Ken is referring to is that on the website you can go to, there's a tool called the MindShifters. And what Michael put together some 20 years ago is there's 3 different categories. There's healing into aliveness category, there's healing fear and hostility category, and there's creating abundance category. 3 different categories, and in each category there are 13 mind shifter suggestions to do. Often what Michael will do is invite people to pick a number from 1 to 3 and then pick a number from 1 to 13. Before you download the worksheet and look it over, you might go ahead and pick you a number from 1 to 3, stick with that number, and then a number from 1 to 13 and stick with that one. So what the number that Tim picked was 2 and 2. And what that says is mothers/fathers/
2 and 1.
No, this is number 2, isn't it?
Yeah, but I was asking about number 1.
Oh, approving. Oh, I beg your pardon. So it was. So it's 2 and 1. Approving of mothers / fathers / someone else faults heals me. So what you would do, Ken, is that you would write on that side. Now you could put your mother's name in there, or you could just put mom, and you could put mother, or you could put the father, or someone else. Let's say that I have a relationship that I see the faults that's in Terry. I'll use my friend Terry. That approving of Terry's faults heals me. So I write that on the left-hand side, and then the right side I write on there. Well, what difference does that matter? You know, I write the first thing that comes to my mind. What difference does that matter? So then I go back and I write it again. Approving of Terry's faults heals me. Well, this doesn't make any sense to me. That's crazy. This is really stupid. Then I go back and I write it again, and I keep writing it. Because remember what we talked about, how the unconscious mind it's deeper. What you want to do is to bring it up. Now, the mind wants to know what it is right then and there so it can just go ahead and solve it. Can't solve it that way. There's something that doesn't have anything to do with Terry. Remember, Terry is just an image that's showing me something in me that I don't like. And so what I'm going to do is with the mind shifter, it's going to bring it up to my consciousness, to my 9 bits up here, so that I can look at it, breathe through it, and let it go. It's removed then from my consciousness because it doesn't have anything to do with Terry. Terry's just mirroring for me of what it is that I have in my unconsciousness that needs to heal.
So the thing that helps me heal then is that I'm changing it from, originally I was seeing it as a fault of my mother, father, Terry, whatever. I'd say Jeanette, my wife, but she doesn't have any faults.
So we all know what that means, right? Everyone's listening. I hope Jeanette's listening to that.
I hope
so notice that we all know exactly what it is that Ken was referring to. I knew this before he even asked.
Yeah. So I'm changing it from thinking that those are faults that those people have, which is judgment, to approving, which would be excessive.
So notice what you're doing, Tim. Ken. Notice what you're doing. Notice what your dissociated mind is. It wants to figure it out before it does the work.
Yeah.
That's everyone. So you've been given an assignment, all right? You've given it to yourself. Yeah. I support you in doing this, that you spend minimum of 1 hour tonight and maybe 1 hour tomorrow morning of quiet time, and you just stay doing this. Now, what the mind's going to want to do after a couple minutes is going to say, oh, I'm finished, that's it. But you notice that there are some things that it's so buried down there that it will not come to the surface. You cannot get down to that until you continue to do the work. The mind will do its best to get it out, get you away from doing that. The purpose of the mind is to manage stress. To manage stress. Not to let stress go, it's to manage it. So if there's something that's buried deep inside of you, the way that it's managed that stress before is to keep it hidden, to dissociate from it. What we're inviting you to do is to associate with it again. Now, it really doesn't have anything to do with your wife. It has to do more than likely of what it is that went on. It could have even been generational, but there's an energy that's in you. So you want to bring that up to the surface. Well, our mind says, oh, no, wait a minute. I know all of the ways in order to avoid this. I'll exercise, I'll eat right, I'll say the right things, and I'll look good, and I'll even feel good. And underlying, though, as soon as someone says the wrong thing, boom, it's there. Have you ever noticed that that's how it works?
Yeah, rarely, but occasionally.
Rarely, but occasionally. So that means that you have a joke. Yeah, and when people are telling jokes, see, Ken, he even invited me in a roundabout way to give him some feedback on some different things. So we have about 5 minutes. So my recommendation to you, Ken, is the next 3 or 4 days that you're going to be here is to do this. Now, if you'll do it minimum of 2 hours, an hour before you go to sleep tonight, an hour in the morning when you wake up. Then you'll get some insights. You cannot get the insights until you bring it up. It just doesn't work that way. The mind is so developed and creative that it dissociates with everything. So all of a sudden, then you want to do something, and you notice you've been enthusiastic about doing something, and you're, oh, wow, this is a really great idea. And then the next thing is, oh, well, it's not really that great of an idea. There's all of these things that go on, and then people stop doing what it is that inspirationally when they took it on. It's like, oh, well, but I want to figure this out. You can't figure it out. And it's easier to do it than it is to talk to yourself about it. It's easier just to go on and do it. Now, to follow some different instructions, you'll get some different results. But the mind wants to always be right. Always, it's going to argue. It's going to give its justifications because its job is to manage stress. It's to manage, well, we're not going to go there. We're not going to look at that. And the truth of it is, though, if you don't remove that energy will stay inside of you and it'll continue to churn. Energy is energy in motion, and it starts to burn, and it creates dis-ease. Dis-ease. It's not at ease. If you look at that, remove the dis-ease. Not a bug, not an organ, not the flesh. You remove the energy that created that. And if we had more time, we would get into this, what the disease process is, and give that illustration that there's no bugs out there that are going to do anything to us. If we have, you being an organist with what it is, if you have organic soil, really 100% organic soil, the bugs don't come, right? Yeah, they stay away. There's nothing for them. They're the cleanup crew. So the same way with energy, but if you have an energy in you that doesn't belong there, you need to remove that. How do you remove that? You start taking the things out of it that don't belong into it. If you had soil, you take the things that didn't belong in there, and you put the things in that did. You put in love, you remove anger and hostility. You hold that space of love as you're taking that energy out, and that's the process. That's what forgiveness is about. It's removing anything that doesn't belong there. When you remove everything, I love the story about Michelangelo and the sculptor, the statue of David. And they asked him, how did you carve such an incredible piece of sculpture out of a flawed piece of marble? And he said, I just looked at the marble, and everything that didn't belong there, I just removed it. I removed all the flaws, and there was the statue. And that's what we do. That's what our life is about. So anyway, we're going to start wrapping it up. Thank you, everyone, for participating and listening in. And thank you, Dr. Tim, for letting me know that it was coming through and loud and clear and your support with it. Again, if you'd like to go to our website, www.whyagain.com, and check out any of our intensives or any of the tools of what it is that we offer here. And we will have this technical thing handled by next week. Michael will be back on Monday to share with us the newest things that are going on in his world. Thank you very much, Ken, for being of support and being here. Is a wonderful idea. This just evolved over the 30 minutes before the talk show that, we need to come up with something different. And so we hope that you all have enjoyed. Oh, and they just now told me I have 90 seconds, I think. That's what it said, was 90 seconds. So remember this. Remember the poem if you want. You can go to the website and download that. Go to the website and click on Dr. Tim's talk on forgiveness, a fabulous one. And so remember, each moment of love, each moment of giving, each moment of joy is a moment of living. Moment of anger, each moment of lying, each moment of vengeance is a moment of dying. All our moments add together like the digits in the sum. And the answer tells us plainly whether life or death shall come. We thank you all very much for your support, your willingness, and, that is what it takes. I'm very grateful to Michael and Jeannie and Carol for allowing me to be here. And once again, thank you, Ken. We love you guys, and have a fabulous weekend. Namaste.